Welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and each week I talk with event professionals and entrepreneurs about how they plan, promote, and run their events. We help you build your events empire by growing your business using live events, whether you're running community meetups or conferences, trade shows, and other events. We focus on finding actionable tips that you can use straight away. We want you to get more attendees, produce epic events, make more money, and most importantly, to do it all with no stress. This podcast is sponsored by EventsFrame. Check it out over at EventsFrame.com. Make the switch from Eventbrite today to our amazing ticketing and registration system with no ticket fees. Most ticketing systems charge you a minimum of 3% of the ticket price, but we just have a flat, low fee with no ticket fees and no restrictions. There's literally no system out there that is cheaper than EventsFrame. It's also super easy to use, and you can embed your tickets in your website, or you can use our own website builder, which is really simple. We have amazing options to apply all kinds of discounts and all the features you'd expect from a much more expensive system like QR code check-in. Go to eventsframe.com, that's EventsFrame.com, for a free, no-risk, 1-month trial. Hello, welcome to the podcast. So today we've got my co-host James back on the podcast. How are you doing, James?
I'm good, Dan. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, well, I've seen you a lot recently. So this is what we're going to have a talk about, actually. So I was out in Asia for 7 weeks, took the whole family out. It was quite an adventure. And James and me ran a bunch of events together in that time. So it's just going to have a quick recap.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had, just in Asia, I think we've been in 4 different countries the last 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, you have. Some without me, and I was there in Philippines without you. You were in Korea without me. But just to give you some context, so I'm based in Prague, in Czech Republic. James is based in Bangkok, in Thailand. James runs Asia and Middle East for Apps Events, as well as working for a school there. And I've been going on for ages about spending more time in Asia. I love Asia and I want to do it. And, now we've got a young son. And I was really saying to James last year, before he goes to school, we've really got the opportunity just to go and spend time other places. So what I decided to do was head across to Bangkok, where James is, which is the logical place to start. Got a long-term Airbnb for 7 weeks, booked a flight and took the family out. And then, we did a bunch of side trips along the way.
It was funny how you were in my neighborhood in Bangkok. Bangkok's a huge city. How many days did we actually meet up? Maybe
not
5,
that many.
7?
That's what's funny, I just kind of in my mind we'd be hanging out every time. You were calling for a coffee, we'd go out for a beer. But, Bangkok's it's not a city like that. Unless someone lives really close, people don't just call into each other's houses and don't do that kind of thing. It's just the thing about Bangkok for people who haven't been. The traffic's out of this world. Well, we've just been to Nepal, so now we think Bangkok is good compared to Kathmandu. But the thing about Bangkok is you could live on the next block from someone, but because of the way traffic works, you have to take a bunch of strange U-turns, and maybe you can't go directly from one place to another. You could be physically really close to someone, but to drive there could be horrendous.
Yeah, to give you an idea, I was heading to the airport on Friday, and it said 30 minutes to the airport. I took one wrong turn. Google Maps went from 30 minutes predicted time up to 55. Just with one wrong turn.
Yeah. So,
and that's how Bangkok really is.
Yeah. And the other reason I was in Bangkok was I attended, there's a conference I've talked about before called DCBKK. There's an entrepreneurs group we're members of. And that conference every year is in Bangkok. It's all about, running location-independent businesses, like businesses you can run from anywhere, of which Apps Events is kind of like that. So I was attending that. And we also had a Bangkok summit, which was great. So we had our summit. So that was kind of the reason for being in Bangkok. But the first event we ran was in Kathmandu. So I joined James in Bangkok, and we flew out. I decided not to take the family. I just realized after a bit of research, Kathmandu is not great. There's nowhere, and it was the right decision because there's no sidewalk that I could see, and it wouldn't be very stroller friendly, I don't think, to get a baby around Bangkok.
Yeah, Kathmandu. It's a great little city, and we've both been there before 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed that much in 20 years.
No, it was a real adventure. And the thing about the first thing was, if you're running an event in Nepal, you cannot get anything in or out of Nepal. Now, it's a common problem we run into running events across Asia, which is customs. Asian customs are strict. It's a nightmare. If you're sending swag, like for instance, we've just got some Chromebooks from Acer. They've held up in customs in Thailand. It's terrible. But Kathmandu is out of this world. Like Derek Harwell, our contacts at the school there, just said you basically can't import anything to Nepal. It just doesn't work.
He was joking about using donkeys to ship stuff across from India.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he said it. I mean, I remember I was reading the newspaper while I was there one morning, and I was waiting to meet you guys. And the local newspaper was saying about all these serious medicines, for cancer and diabetes and things like that. There was a huge shortage in Nepal, and it was a crisis, and because they couldn't get in, and the government was thinking of allowing some special measures to allow these drugs to be imported. And I was like, why aren't you importing all these drugs anyway? But I think they had some special. Nepal had put some crazy hoops to jump through to register your medicine in the country, and the pharmaceutical companies were like, oh, it's too much trouble. Like, what's the point, And then so these drugs just weren't getting in the country, and if you can't even get life-saving drugs in the country, how can you import anything else for a conference, But what were your general impressions of Nepal? I mean, we haven't been there for 20 years. I really loved being back in Kathmandu. I have to say, I really thought it was a great place.
Well, I got to be honest, I read these horror stories about getting through the airport when we arrived. So you and we rushed through the airport with our immigration forms, all the pieces of paper. And in all honesty, it took, 20 minutes to get through the airport?
Yeah.
It was much, much better than I was expecting.
But we were lucky because it wasn't clear. You had to pick up some forms and sign them. And people, I mean, we helped some people out in the queue with us, didn't we? Because they were busy queuing up for 20 minutes and they didn't even have these forms, which it wasn't made clear what you had to do as well.
Not at all, no. Yeah, read up, if you're going to Kathmandu, read up on that very carefully.
Yes.
We got through the airport. I mean, 20, 30 minutes after we landed, we were at the airport with our driver to the hotel. That was quite easy.
Definitely. And then the next thing you see is the roads, which are out of this world. I mean, there's as far as I'm aware, there's no traffic lights in Kathmandu. There's just any busy junction will be a policeman or police men or women working there, and it just takes you forever. I mean, to get 5 kilometers was taking us 30 minutes or 40 minutes to every time,
The only thing I think changed about the Kathmandu roads was the proliferation of taxis now. Yes. I remember before there was no taxis.
No, there was everywhere. Not tuk-tuks, auto rickshaws.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
those new little taxis they got, pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And the event was cool. We ran an event, a Google Summit at Lincoln School, which is a fantastic international school there. Really kind of an oasis from kind of the hustle and bustle of the city. It was a really nice place, and I have to say that the school was great and the teachers were amazing.
Just in case people aren't familiar with what some international schools can look like, if you go through Kathmandu, you've got this crazy city with all this traffic and animals in the streets and people selling in the streets, and you get to these international schools, and they are literally an oasis separated from the city.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously in Kathmandu, just for example, this school had big gates and security to get in, but once you're inside, this could be any school in America, in Europe, one of the nicest schools in any city.
Definitely. A
complete contrast.
And what was cool, we had a drinks party to celebrate, and again, I've talked about this before, but anyone running any event, always have a social event, preferably with some free drinks. And we had a drinks party, and it was on the roof of the school. It was cool. They had a sports area up there, and we could see one or two of the Himalaya mountains in the distance. We could see all of the temples and the hills around. It was a really amazing place to have some drinks.
Yeah, and the air was clear, and it was cool. It was beautiful up there. Absolutely.
Definitely. So so that was Kathmandu. Anything else you remember about that trip that was particularly memorable?
Did we talk about the traffic? I remember on the final day after the event, sitting in a van for about 1 or 2 hours. For what would normally, we could have walked it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could have done.
Definitely.
Any other city, bad traffic would have been 30-minute drive. This is almost 2 hours. I'm sure it was.
Yeah, and for anyone, we had a quick tour. I dragged everyone along because I really wanted. There's old royal palace in Kathmandu, and I really wanted to go, and I'm really fascinated by this. It was kind of a macabre story. The crown prince of Nepal essentially massacred all the royal family. This happened back in, I think it was just 2003, was it? Or it wasn't that long ago, 15, 20 years ago. It happened. Nepal abolished the monarchy and actually is a republic now. But you can visit the palace. You can do these tours. And it's just like a bizarre kind of surreal experience, all very old and dated, like huge stuffed lions, like huge thrones, and very ornate but very old as well, and sort of semi-decaying. It
it was interesting to see that, I don't know, very almost kind of macabre, wasn't it?
Just to step in here quickly to mention our sponsor, EventsFrame, a project I'm co-founder of, and I want to mention our integrations, which we believe are the best available. Firstly, payment integrations. You can connect any payment gateway such as Stripe, PayPal, Braintree, or even bank account or take cash. You can connect everything to EventsFrame. We also have the best marketing integrations out there with every email marketing system, including MailChimp, Zapier, Infusionsoft, Aweber, Drip. And we've got deep integrations with all the social media platforms like Facebook, Google, and Twitter. We've got thousands of events live on EventsFrame right now, ranging from small community meetups to huge trade shows and conferences. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. That's EventsFrame.com. Now, back to the interview.
I just remember the massive bear pelt in the entrance to the palace, the one on the floor. Yeah. It must have been 15 feet long. Definitely. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah, and they have huge stuffed tigers like in kind of attacking position. And then the place where the Palace Massacre took place, you can see as well, and you still see the bullet holes and things, which was very kind of sobering. So that was kind of really last minute, and then that was it. We flew back. AirAsia, which I'm quite a fan of AirAsia actually. For anyone traveling around Asia, they also have a business class, which we didn't have on this flight. Oh no, we didn't go AirAsia. Sorry, we went Thai Lion. Sorry, very similar to AirAsia. And so pretty much the next weekend or 2 weekends later was our Bangkok summit, I think.
Which is our 7th time running the Bangkok Summit.
And this is great because this is like a dream of managing to run an event for 7 consecutive years. And it's gone through a few iterations. It used to be at the American school, and then it moved to Thai Chinese, where it's been for a few years. And, maybe we'll do it again. Hopefully we will. We may even do it. We're talking to a school in Phuket. We may even do it at Phuket next year. But it's a really long-standing event. And even though we've been close to not running it some years, I think it's really important for continuity. If you've got an event like this, you just keep running it every year. Some years are bigger, some years are smaller, but it creates a great sense of occasion by having it, every year.
And actually, just as we're talking about it, it's good to shout out to Ron, just in case he's listening. So Ron Smith, he's at Thai Chinese. He's been hugely supportive in running these events for years. Great. And it's always about a collaboration. And when you're working with a school that's as easy to work with as Thai Chinese is, and working with Ron, it's always a great event.
Definitely. Now, this is like, I guess, in terms of people running their own events, one thing we learned from Thai Chinese is it's location's really important. And Thai Chinese is an amazing school, but it's not really a very central location, And I think it's kind of really out to the east of Bangkok, out towards the airport. And I think generally, if you can get a central location for anything you're running, it's always better. It just means it's much easier for people to get there, and I think you get more attendees that way as well.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We typically can get out to Thai Chinese in 20, 25 minutes in a taxi, or we can arrange transportation via bus. Unfortunately, on that day at the end of our event, we're due to go to the networking party, which is a fun time. Everybody gets together. And a massive rainstorm unleashed across Bangkok. Yeah. And instead of a 25-minute journey back to the networking venue, it was, I think, an hour and a half or more.
Yeah, for people that haven't been, when it rains in Bangkok, the whole city just grinds to a halt. Much the same as like if it snows in England, like it just causes chaos.
Yeah. And the city just shuts down for an hour or two.
Yeah, and streets start overflowing, and it's a real sight to see. So we did a great networking party at a kind of wine bar place in a shopping mall. Everything in Asia is in shopping malls. Basically, you get used to that pretty quick. But it was great, really nice. And again, just something I'm proud of, actually, that we've done that together for 7 years. It was the second event we ever ran. And first one was in Prague, second one was in Bangkok, and it's great to have kept that going.
It is. It really is. And hopefully got something in Bangkok next year and in Phuket as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. So we spoke to a school in Phuket. We'll keep it under wraps for now, but I was down there visiting them. We had a bit of a holiday as well down there. And it's beautiful. Phuket's great. It's a holiday tropical island. I think we can get people from across Asia. People hopefully will come in from China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, all these countries to visit. Maybe even Dubai and places like that. Because Phuket has direct flights from everywhere.
Yeah, it does. I mean, typically people would come into Bangkok, but now in Thailand you've got Phuket as international airport. Chiang Mai is as well. They're actually opening up a lot more of the airports, and they're building a few new ones as well,
Yeah.
making it a lot easier to run events in Thailand.
That's kind of the end of my events in Asia. We had a bit of did some work in Bangkok. I attended the conference I mentioned, DCBKK, which was fantastic. Had a bit of a holiday with the family. And then you were off pretty quickly to Korea, actually, which you just got back from.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, before we get to Korea, whilst we were in Kathmandu, don't forget we had an awesome team flying out to Myanmar for the weekend, to Yangon.
Yeah, that's quite impressive. We managed to run an event in Myanmar and Kathmandu the same weekend, 2 events in parallel.
So actually, this year, we will have run events in Mongolia, Myanmar, Nepal, and we have an event coming up in Uzbekistan as well.
Yeah, it's cool. Like I love to see these places like Mongolia and Uzbekistan. Obviously Myanmar, we've done Cambodia before. I don't think we've done Laos, have we? Have we done Laos?
No, not yet.
That's one of the few countries we haven't done in Asia, actually. Maybe the only one.
I think it is.
We've never done Indonesia either.
No.
Which has been very close to it. So how was so obviously that neither of us were there, but Rob did a great job there.
Yeah, Rob, Scott, and Davis were out in Myanmar. It was really good. They had a great time. The school's fantastic again. Mike at the school was amazing. Big group of educators, I think 60, 70 plus educators on the Google education exams. Yeah, great weekend.
Yeah. And how was Korea? Because you were just in Korea. Now, South Korea, we've been running an event now. I think it's the 4th time, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, you won't believe this. It's the 6th time we've run Korea.
Is it the 6th time?
I believe it is.
I did not know that.
I need to check that.
You might be right. Because we did 2. 1 year we did 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
5 or 6. I'm sure it's 6.
Now, Korea's great. I definitely want to come next year. I think we've already agreed the event for next year, haven't we?
We have, yes.
I love it there, and for me it's great because it's one of the few places I can fly direct to from Prague as well on Czech Airlines and Korean Airlines. So it's interesting because it's kind of like people think Asia's very small, but actually from Bangkok to Korea, it's maybe 5 or 6 hour flight, maybe more?
6 hours.
6 hour flight, yes. And actually to get around a lot of places in Asia, even though people think it's all close, it's actually, big distances.
It is massive distances. So 6 hours to Korea. Japan is a little bit further. And that's from Bangkok. Last year we had Craig coming up from Singapore. He was an 8-hour flight from Singapore to Korea. Yeah, people don't realize how big Asia is.
Definitely. And the other thing is it's cold. I mean, you literally go from tropical weather to cold weather, which is interesting.
Oh, yeah. Selfishly, personally, coming from Bangkok, you land in Korea. It's actually 30 degrees cooler, 30 degrees Celsius cooler in Seoul than it was in Bangkok.
Wow.
And you get to Korea, and Korea's a little bit like Singapore in the way that it's organized. The roads are really well designed. Everything is very easy. It's very safe, just like Singapore is.
Yep.
And so you get into Korea and you can really just relax. I mean, Bangkok is quite safe, generally speaking. But living here gets a little bit crazy. As soon as I get to Korea, it's absolutely just the easiest traveling you can imagine.
Yeah. And our event is in Incheon, which is like a new city, kind of where the airport is. I think it's across the river from Seoul. It's all one urban conurbation, but it is officially a different city, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually reclaimed land. In fact, it might not even be reclaimed land. I think it's just new land that they've been dredging the ocean around there and then formed this new land. Songdo is the actual town or district. And all the roads are this grid line road, just like in the US, full of big high-rise condos, high-rise hotels, shopping malls, everything. It's a really, really interesting place to visit.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just one kind of observation, which is really different if you're used to a Western city, is, if you're in like a London or something, all the shops and businesses they're at street level, whereas in Korea, you've got these high-rise buildings, and you'll look up and there's signs, there'll be bars on the 5th floor and the 6th floor of these buildings, just all, it's not all on the ground floor, kind of as you would expect in Europe. Hong Kong's like that as well, actually.
Yeah, Hong Kong is really like that, isn't it? I noticed that the very first time in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Songdo is very interesting because it's very modern, very new. Earlier this year, we were in Busan for an event in the south on the island of Goje. And that's more traditional Korea, windy streets, smaller cities, and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Songdo, brand new, modern. It's sort of a tech city of Korea, I guess.
Do you find, James, obviously you've run events in a lot of different Asian cities now, but do you think after a while it's just as hard or just as easy to run an event everywhere, or do you think some countries are much harder than others?
It's a good question. Cut this and let me think about it.
Yeah, make a note.
Actually, as we're cutting this, yeah, I'm trying to think. I think honestly they're the same. I don't think it makes much difference.
Yeah.
Because we're in a school. As soon as we get to school, it's a school.
So,
yep, cool.
James, you've run events all across Asia. Like, do you find there's a big difference between countries? Like, some countries are much easier to run events, or do you find it's all, once you're used to doing things internationally, it's all the same?
Quite frankly, apart from the logistics of getting to the venue, so I mean, there's a big difference between getting a taxi in Kathmandu and getting a taxi in Korea and Seoul. Massive difference. Yeah. Aside from that, once you're in these venues, because we're running with international schools or professional venues. Once you're in the venue, it's all very easy.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, like we mentioned before, that the real issue I found with Asia is just getting things shipped around. And you would think that you could just pay DHL or UPC to get things through customs, but it doesn't seem to work like that.
And actually, just a second thought. I mean, considering countries like Nepal and Myanmar and Thailand to a lesser extent, compared to the Koreas and the Singapores, when you go to certain event venues, they have so many people working there, so many facilities staff, so many tech staff in places like Nepal, because they can afford to employ facilities and tech staff. Whereas in more expensive countries like Singapore and Hong Kong, I mean, obviously it's more expensive to employ a lot of people. So quite often, these more developing countries, it's easier to run events just because there's more people on the ground.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, James, look, that was a fairly quick chat. It was good to have a catch up again. We've had a bit of a delay especially on the events podcast, and with some developments with EventsFrame, which I think we'll definitely record at least one podcast on in the future once things are clarified. Nothing we can really say right now, and maybe a bit of a change in direction for this podcast. So it's great to talk again, and that's a bit of a teaser, but there's definitely going to be some news on the next podcast, I think.
Thanks, Dan. Looking forward to it, mate.
Sounds good.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? EventsFrame event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result, you sell more tickets. Check out eventsframe.com.